So I'm Jeremy Greer. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for CFED. And we are here to kick off the 2014 Capitol Hill Day for the ALC. Everybody, let's have a round of applause for that. This is the first action up on the Hill, the first time that this group, the Assets and Opportunity Network, has led a delegation on the Hill since it's launched at the last ALC. And what we have this time, last year we had about 130 people go up to the Hill. This year, in 2014, we expect about 300 people to go up on the Hill and raise a ruckus and bring attention to asset building issues. But before we get started, I want all of the state and local leads from organizations that are state and local leads of the Assets and Opportunity Network to stand up. So if you are a state or local lead for the Assets Opportunity Network, please stand up. Now everybody, a loud round of applause for these folks. These are your leaders in the asset building field. They are the people that helped us and worked with us to put this together, and they will be showing you the ropes and bringing you up on the Hill and really leading this delegation so that the people on Capitol Hill begin to recognize the hard work of this field. Also important in bringing this together, and that I want to acknowledge, are the CFED staff and the government affairs team, the team that I am privileged to lead. And I want to call them all out by name. I know they're not all in the hall because they're out taking care of last-minute things before we go. But I want to acknowledge Catherine Lucas McKay, Ezra Levin, Alicia Atkinson, and over here to the left, and I want him to stand up, Emmanuel Nieves, who scheduled every single meeting that you guys are going to go on today. So we have a short program for you. The reason we have a short program for you is because we worked so hard and so diligently before this conference for everyone to be prepared and ready to go. So I feel like you all are really ready and prepared to go up on the Hill and make a good scene. I have a few housekeeping things that I want to mention before we go. So first of all, there are leave behinds on all of your tables. Those are leave behinds. Those folders are leave behind packets for your meetings. They are labeled by state and by group. So you only need 2 of them for each meeting. And make sure you grab the right packets for your state and for your group. The other housekeeping note that I want to mention is that some of you have meetings that start at 1 o'clock. Those meetings, you're going to have to get out of here a little early, probably before we end this session. But you should, so at about 12:20, look at your clock, at about 12:20, you should be heading up the escalators out and to go to the buses, which are going to be on L Street, and there will be people that will be able to guide you to where you need to go. So now to start off the program. Basically what we're going to do today is you're going to hear from an inspirational leader in the field, an inspiration public policy mover and shaker who I'll introduce in a minute. And then after that, I'll come back up and answer any last-minute questions people have. And if there are none, I want to give you all as much time as you need to go to organize, to talk about your meetings before you go up to the Hill. After that bus leaves at which will leave at 12:30 for those 1 o'clock folks, the next bus will leave at 1:40. So we'll hope to end this at about 12:45, and between 12:45 and 1:40, you guys will have some time for your meetings. So now, to introduce our speaker. Our speaker is Robert Rabin. Robert Rabin is the principal and founder of the Rabin Group, which is an important mover and shaker here in Washington. Robert is a man on a mission. Robert works to drive public policy in humane and progressive direction, to bring diversity and equity to boardrooms, think tanks, and corporate America, to create fair judiciary and influence legislation to broaden civil rights, reform the criminal justice system, improve education for all children, and that's just start. As you'll find out, Robert's not a man of small talk. Whether consulting with Google or the Fisheries Survivor Fund in New Bedford, whether advising the Center of Reproductive Rights or Black Church Center, he is unfailingly honest, direct, focused, and educated on every nuance of his client's reality. He is effective working in conservative faith leaders, as well as the LGBT activists. Robert is aggressively bipartisan approach and has honed over an impressive legislative career, working with Barney Frank's staff on the House Judiciary Committee and Chairman Hyde's, and achieved Chairman Hyde's endorsement as an appointment to Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs under Attorney General Janet Reno. Robert founded the Rayburn Group in 2002, and he's graduated from the Wharton School and New York University of Law. And I'll say, if someone has heard Robert speak, he is direct and honest, and you all should gain a lot from listening to him speak. So let me introduce Robert Rayburn.
So apparently I'm supposed to be honest and direct. Welcome, asset builders. Okay, now Washington is the South. When we say welcome, you say something back. Welcome, asset builders. I'm extremely excited to have you and meet you and be here. I'm just going to talk louder than you. Thank you very, very much for coming from around the country to do what you're doing. I have come to know the network, CFED, the leadership over the last few years, and have an enormous appreciation and, frankly, passion and respect for the blessings that you are providing to Americans who rely on your work so heavily. You know it, I'm persuaded. You're working on some of the most important issues that the nation faces. You're doing it day in and day out. It feels harder and harder to get some of the institutions and elected officials and entrenched interests to see what you know. And your being here today makes an enormous difference on this journey. So I thank you and I commend you. I'm a registered lobbyist. Just letting that sink in for our little 12-step program that we have around registered lobbyists. And I've been a registered lobbyist for years, and I went into lobbying after 10 years in the government. I ran a division of the Department of Justice, I worked in Congress, I worked for a lot of members, particularly members who are champions on some of the issues that you care about, Barney Frank and Maxine Waters and John Conyers. And in doing 25 years of public policy, I've only grown more and more infatuated and interested in it. Public policy is about how power is distributed. And that's why you're here. You care about how power is distributed. Doing the work that you do every day demonstrates that you know we have yawning chasms in how hardworking, working class people, poor people, working class families, lower middle income families are trying to be a healthy part of the fabric of this country against a lot of odds. And public policy sets the rules. And you're in the city that sets the rules. And you're about to embark on one of the most important things we can do in this democracy, which is talk to the people who set the rules and give them the information they need to do it right. How many of you have never lobbied Congress? Raise your hand if you've never lobbied Congress. How many of you think you're supposed to hate Congress because we're dysfunctional? So that's not a great way to form a relationship. We're going to have a better attitude starting right now. We're here to help them do their job. So lobbying is a subset of advocacy, and advocacy is about persuasion, and persuasion is about how to get people to do what you'd like them to do. And the components of that should be obvious, given what I've just said. Number one, you have to know what you want, and you have to be as clear as possible about what success looks like. What do you want as an organization? What do you want as a state affiliate? What do you want as a leader? What do you want as a voter for the member that you're about to see? Can you be as crisp as possible? We are organizing around Right Side Up. That has a set of clear components. They're in your packets. Agree among yourselves before you open up your mouths with any of these visits what the ask is, what we want them to do. The sharper that is, the better. And I said lobbying is advocacy, and advocacy is the same no matter what your forum is. When I try to get my teenage child to clean her room, it requires the same advocacy skills that come to bear when I'm talking to Senator Warren about a consumer lending issue. I have to know what I want, know your audience, know what motivates your audience, have a sense of who else is talking to your audience, and listen to your audience. Those are the components of all advocacy, no matter what the forum. And so I want to, the most important thing I can do is demythologize what's about to happen. There will be gorgeous buildings, there will be security, the member of Congress or staff will be running around, it will seem frantic. It's a very good bet that one of them will get on an electronic device while you're speaking, which does not per se mean, they may be playing Angry Birds, there may be something more urgent. Carry on. Carry on. So, one, make sure the goal, the ask, what we want from them is precise. Work with the captains, talk about it on the bus, agree among yourselves, what are we asking of these people? Two, get a sense of your audience. Trying to think of the most diplomatic way to say what I'm about to say, but I'm just going to say it. The vast majority of speakers, certainly in lobbying, and I know this from 10 years of listening and 15 years of doing it, but also in life, speak over or under their audience. Particularly practitioners like you, who are subject matter experts in what we're going to talk about. You live it, you breathe it, you know it, you do it. And you tend to come at these issues with a very high level of knowledge. And frequently we don't take the time, and sometimes it can be 7 seconds and sometimes it can be 2 minutes, to find out exactly where the audience is before we launch into the conversation. I represented an amazing organization that taught me a lot, and we put them out of business, called the Hemlock Society. Has anyone heard of the Hemlock Society? It's a membership organization organized to help people die, those who were terminally ill, and to work with their physician on methods about pain relief and hastening your death. None of you expected this topic to come up at this lunch. And everybody who joins the Hemlock Society is an ideologue, an expert on how we're going to die. And the first time I brought them up to the Hill, a 75, 80-year-old woman who was a member of Hemlock would start a conversation with a 23-year-old staffer that went a little something like this. You know, there's a really good chance you're going to have an awful death. I mean, you could be on a ski vacation and crash. You could be in an auto accident. I mean, God forbid, you might have a boyfriend that is a domestic abuser, and it can be excruciating, and you could be nowhere near family, and no one's going to know how you want to die, and you're going to be at the mercy of a doctor. So you lost me at hello. The 23-year-old hasn't actually thought about her death. Even those of us who are older don't really want to have a conversation with a stranger or anybody about how we're going to die. So obviously it's an exaggerated example of what I'm talking about. But the best persuader starts the conversation about the listener. Have you met with anyone from our network? Have you talked or visited with anyone in the state on asset building? Where are you on the issues we're about to talk about? I haven't had, and if it's true, I haven't had a chance to do the full research on where you and your member are on a range of issues. What do you know about it? And they will tell you. And you will learn right away whether they are idiot savants and know everything there is to know, in which case you can cut right to the chase, or they work on 30 issues, and this is the 31st issue they work on, and take it from the top. Couple of personal things. You do not know who on a Capitol Hill office is the decision maker. Sometimes the member defers appropriately to a member of the staff who is more knowledgeable. Sometimes that member of staff might look like he's 7 years old. Do your best to hide your judgment about the fact that we have a system in which frequently very young people are charged with making recommendations to elected officials about outcomes. That is the system. Try to look at it as an opportunity. A person who is young and less experienced than you'd hope is educable on issues that are important to you. The second most effective part of persuasion, or a subset of what I've just said, is listening. The profession of listening is woefully under-credentialed. It is crucial that you slow down and hear what people are actually saying to you. This is true in all forms of life. When my child is upset and responding to me why she's not going to clean her room, it may not be about the room. It may be about something that happened with a friend. It may be that her other parent had a completely different strategy. I'm carrot, the other parent is stick. You must listen. You must listen to the person you're talking about, and on public policy, it's crucial. Elected officials and their staff are in the business, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, I just mean it descriptively. Elected officials and their staff are in the business of wanting the constituent to think and know that they're with you. That is the relationship between the elected official and his or her constituents. I'm there for you. And so there is an acute ability on their part to agree with you. And your challenge as a professional is to bore down on what we're agreeing on. And so the classic, which politicians do to themselves, a person is running for office and comes up to an incumbent, someone comes up to a senator in that state and says, Senator X, I'm running for township board chair. I really would like your support. And the senator says, I love you, Larry, you're the best. And Larry, who's a little inexperienced, walks away and thinks that he has the senator's support. Now, you now know, because I've just focused you on it, all Larry knows is that the senator thinks you're the best. Now, people are not going to manhandle you like that in this forum, but you get my point. This is very important to me. The congressman finds this as a priority if you're talking to the staffer. You will get a series of function key answers from most members. It is your responsibility as a good advocate to bore down. What are we agreeing on? What would you, if you're talking to the elected, or what would the member, if you're talking to staff, like to do on this issue? How can we follow up with you to make sure that this is a relationship and not a one-off? I'd love for you to read the packet. Should we call you in a week or set up time? And I don't mean to get into any table captain's business here. If you guys want to do this differently, you'll talk to people on their bus. Should we set up a time in a week to talk through what you and the member would like to do on this issue? Who else do you need to hear from? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other side of that coin is take yes for an answer. Sometimes as people who are very passionate about what we want to do, we're going into a conversation with a fixed sense of what we want the listener to know. And you've got your 5 points. Be careful that you're not dealing with somebody who says to you after the first one, I totally agree with you, what do you want? It's very common, regrettably, to keep going because you've so wired yourself that you have to deliver the 5 points. Take yes for an answer and find out what the yes is. I will stop there and open it up for questions. The light isn't perfect throughout the room, and so if I don't see your hand, I'll make up questions for you. Okay, come on. What are you nervous about? Yay! Jeremy is going to talk to you about the specifics, the substance of what we're advocating for when I sit down, which will be in a minute. Yes? The House passed a continuing resolution yesterday, yes. And the Senate will as well. Wow. Okay, so that's the graduate school question. Will the language of the continuing resolution likely be the 015 appropriations? Yes. So how a bill becomes a law? We're gonna play that behind me. For any legislation to pass, the House and Senate have to provide identical bills, and then the president has to sign it. So the House yesterday passed a continuing resolution which extends the current appropriation, basically extends the current appropriations allotments. I don't know what the end date, but into the future. The Senate is likely to take it up today or tomorrow. It's highly likely that they will take it as is. If they amend it, then it gets sent back to the House. It's highly likely that the House will take whatever the Senate amends. By that, I mean there isn't much in play between the two chambers that is a make or break deal. And then the president will sign it. So they should have closure this week on a continuing resolution. So there will be more questions. Raise your hand if you have them. I want to say something that I find increasingly necessary to say, and as sad as it is, notwithstanding the extremely low approval rating of Congress, although people tend to approve much more of their own representative and senator than they do of the institution as a whole, it is a place filled with thousands of men and women, professional staff and electeds, who rely on you to do their job. Said more bluntly, votes beats money always, except for the felonious and the corrupt, which is a tiny group. Votes trump money. And by votes, I mean people in the district whom they actually represent with a point of view that is willing to be communicated to them. And what you have that no PAC has is a voice for hundreds and sometimes thousands of people in your community that rely on your institutions and your work to get through. And the member and the staff know that. That's why they're meeting with you. These are not academic conversations that we're having. The member of Congress, particularly the one that represents where you do business, knows full well that you are an important communications platform to hundreds and sometimes thousands of people in their district about whether or not they, or the committee on which they sit, or the Congress in which they work, is hearing the needs of the adults in your community. That's why you were the most powerful force in this powerful city. Votes trump money to the vast majority of members. And you represent votes. I know that you're not C4s, I know that you're not constituency organizations that mobilize voters, but you are a platform to communicate to adults about the effectiveness and responsiveness of people charged with setting the rules. And I want you to know that. And I want you to look at those marble buildings as yours. They are yours. You own them. You paid for them. You overpaid for them. And you go in there as peers having a peer conversation with the electeds and staff who want to hear from you. Thank you very much for being in Washington. Thank you for doing what you do. Adelante.
All right. Votes trump money, right? All right, so I want to answer any questions that people have. But first, let me start off by talking about the specifics of what you guys are going to talk about on the Hill. Now, just so you know, all of the state and local leaders that that I mentioned earlier we've all had meetings, we've all had discussions, so they're very informed and very knowledgeable around all of these issues. So if you have particular questions as it relates to your state, they can answer them, and then they can help you move through it even beyond what I can tell you up here on the podium. The other thing to mention is, like I said, I'm going to want to get off the stage at about 12, no later than 12:40, so that you all can have some time, so that you can do exactly what Robert said. Meet together, talk together. Who's gonna make the ask? Who's gonna do the talking? How are we going to introduce ourselves to our legislators? How are we going to talk about our work? Those are the things that you all want to get together in the time before we send you off, and even on the bus on your way over there. So let me start with what's the substance of what you guys are going to talk about today. As Andrea mentioned, for those of you that were here during the State of the Field, we know that the tax code is incredibly regressive, and that tax code is the way in which wealth and assets are built in this country. We all know this. Many of you run Vita sites, so you know the tax return inside and out. You know where people get their deductions. You know where people get their credits. You understand how the mechanics of the tax code work. And those of you who are very close to it know that a lot of people can't access it. As Andrea mentioned in her State of the Field, about $540 billion a year are spent on asset building programs through the tax code. And what we know is that the top 1% of taxpayers get more in benefit out of the tax code than the entire bottom 80% of taxpayers. This is upside down. And that's the message we want to deliver, that this is upside down. That the main vehicle in which we provide wealth building support to people in this country is done so in a way that the people at the very top get the most, and the people at the bottom that need the most support, especially in this economy, are not getting it and not getting the support through the tax code. So in your packets in your packet and in the leave behind packet is a one-pager that CFED has put together that breaks down the tax code. And in there we have policy recommendations in 4 areas: savings and investment, mortgages, home ownership, retirement, and higher education. And what I'd add to that is, because I think it's important, it's something we should talk about if you feel moved to, free tax prep services. Because people that don't have access to free tax preparation often aren't going to get access to any of these benefits because they're going to probably get their tax returns done by people that don't have their best interests at heart. So what you should talk about is you should talk about your work. You should talk about what you do, talk about the value you bring to their district and to their community. And then you should choose of those things what you feel most comfortable talking about. You do not feel like you have to go through all 5 of those things, or even all the bullet points within all 5 of those things that are in your report. But you should hone in on the thing that you feel the most confident talking about. So if you're a housing counseling group and you understand the power of home ownership, talk about that. If you're a group that works on retirement security and you understand how the Savers Credit really begins to help people build for retirement, talk about that. If you work with people on education and you understand the power of children's savings and how the tax code could really begin to bolster the ability that people can put money into account to put their kids through school, talk about that. Talk about what you are an expert in. As Robert said, you are the experts. So you talk about what you are an expert in, and you should be just fine. But the key thing is when we split up, these are large groups, you all should decide what are those things that we want to talk about. So I'll stop there. There are 2 mics. There's a mic over here, and then Jen Brooks, the Director of State and Local Policy in the Assets and Opportunity Network, is holding another mic. I probably butchered your title, didn't I? Jen Brooks. So if you have a question, please speak into the mic so that everyone can hear it. I can't see, so I'll look for Jen.
Yeah, the question is, what's the ask? I mean, I get there's all the recommendations. What's the ask and what's the follow-up?
Right.
Do we refer them to CFED? Do we?
What you should do is you tell them, so you make the ask. So, for example, if it's in a home ownership space, you can talk about the incredible regressive tax that the mortgage interest deduction is. The people on the very top get most of the benefit, people on the very bottom get very little of the benefit. That a first-time home buyer's credit, like the one that was in place before 2010, is a better way of delivering services to low-income people so that they can become and realize a dream of home ownership. I can follow up with you with more information on that. There's some in your packet, but I can follow up with more. And you break down on what that is that they want. As you get on the bus, we'll be giving you feedback forms. So what we want you to do is on those feedback forms, write in all those follow-up items that you have. All right? Give them to us. And then we can connect with you in the next couple weeks so that you will be able to then follow up with them around all of those items that you promised to. What I would say is pick someone in your group that is the kind of point person to do the follow-up and to work with us to make sure that you get them all the information that they need and requested. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jeremy. Is this on? Okay. I was just going to follow up on that because I think one of the asks, and I would love your thoughts on this, is actually an offer of help. And
Yes.
that to say that we're the experts in our communities and we're plugged into a national network of experts on these issues. So if something comes up where you have questions or you need data or you need local stories or you need practitioners to testify, please get in touch with us and let us be that resource for you so that there's something concrete there that extends the relationship.
Yep, absolutely. Remember, you are the people that know the community, and you know it best. You know that community inside and out much better than them. Any other questions? There's one up here in front, Jen.
I was just wondering if there's more information about the American Opportunity Tax Credit.
Yes. So we have a whole report that we can provide them with around higher ed tax credits. We didn't put them in the leave behinds because we don't know what people are going to talk about or what interest there is. But if you write that down, we can make sure that we get that information to you so that you can leave it behind. I mean, the big issue with all of the higher ed tax credits, just for those who are interested in it, is there's little benefit to anyone in preparing or getting to college because all of the expenses that qualify under those tax credits are ones that you accrue once you're there. So there's little in the tax code that helps people get to college, like children's savings. So if, for example, you can't take out the credit if you were to put money in a children's savings account. You can't count that towards the credit. The only thing you can count is things that you purchase after you get there, like books, tuition, room and board, meals, things like that. So it's important to note and make that point that there's little, even a great tax credit like the Access to Opportunity Tax Credit does not help young people get to college. And again, we have a whole report that we can provide that you can promise them, and then we can follow up with them after the meeting. Other questions? Oh, in the back, it's Lucy.
So we were just talking about the Savings Promotion Act that just passed through
Yes.
the House, and that includes the prize-linked savings
Yes.
provision. Do you know if on the Senate side, they're looking for co-sponsors of that bill, and that's something we could ask if we're meeting with a senator?
Yes, absolutely. So the bill that that Lucy's talking about is the Savings Promotion Act, which as Andrea announced in the State of the Field yesterday, passed the House of Representatives unanimously, which rarely happens, especially for issues that we care about. There's a companion bill that is identical in the Senate, and that bill is currently sponsored by Senator Moran of Kansas. This is Kansas in the House. I think they're over there somewhere. And Senator Brown of Ohio, and they're right up here in front. And then it's also been sponsored by Senator Warren from Massachusetts. The pathway to getting that bill passed, which I think it passing in the House gives us pretty good confidence that it at least has a chance, is to get more support in the Senate, to build support in the Senate. So and essentially what that bill does is it makes it easier to do prize-linked savings types of accounts. It makes financial services institutions like banks and not just credit unions able to do those type of accounts. And if we can build support for it in the Senate, bipartisan support, it already has a Republican lead sponsor with a Democratic lead sponsor. Hopefully that'll build the type of momentum to get that bill passed in the Senate and in front of the president. So there's a good shot at that bill. So if that's something you want to make an ask about, we would be happy to provide more information. There are people from D2D I think in the room roaming around. They have a lot of information on it. And again, we have information. So if you don't have it with you, you can say, you know what, we'll follow up and we'll give you a one-pager, a report that shows the effectiveness of prize-linked savings, and we can follow up with that information. I love it. Looks like we're ready to go. So at this point, I have one more announcement. For those of you that are interested, last year, one of the things that we did when people went on the Hill was we had a photographer go and take pictures. A lot of in front of the White House is a great opportunity to take a picture, put it in your newsletter, show it to your to your constituents, your funders. So there will be a photographer on the Senate side, on the back of the Capitol, the part of the Capitol that is facing the Capitol Visitor Center, the Supreme Court, and the Library of Congress. So if you just ask a Capitol Police person, where's the Capitol Visitor Center, they'll point you in the right direction. The photographer will be on the Senate steps, which are, if you face the Capitol, on the right side, between 1:45 and 2:30. So what a lot of folks did last year was they took their state signs and they brought them with them, and then when they took a picture, they took a picture with their state sign in front of the Capitol, or you could just take a picture of yourself. It's a good thing that we've put in publications. I think a lot of people can use them. So if you take a picture, let us know. We'll connect with the photographer and make sure that that you get those pictures. So, all right, thanks a lot. Take this time to prepare. Again, the next bus will leave at 1:40 to go up to the Hill. Thank you.